Hello, good evening.
Good evening. We have on the line ASTT Director, that's from the Agricultural Society of TNT, agripreneur and consultant, Mr. Donny Rogers. Pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for having me on your show, and good night to your listeners.
Yes, indeed. So much has been taking place as far in the agricultural sector. Last week we had Mr. UNC Shadow Minister of Agriculture, Ravi Ratiram, talking about the issue which has been taking place with crime affecting the farmers. Of course, you yourself during the panel at the anti-crime talks held last week Monday at La Jolla said the concern of many farmers had shifted from petty larceny to violent home invasions, referring to the recent assault and robbery of a man at his home. You said that farmers are afraid of being hogtied, lit alight in front of their family, tortured, and robbed. And that is what happened to a farmer not too long ago. Um, some of the things that I asked Mr. Ratiram was as far as the stakeholders having meeting with members of the TTPS. Has any of that developed anything as far as ensuring the safety of the farmers?
Well, from the agricultural perspective, what I can say is that there are some officers of the TTPS who have really been working alongside the farmers. But generally, and even with a personal experience that I had, getting the TTPS officers to come out and do something for an offense that they would deem to be predial larceny by nature, or anything to do with a farm, it's sometimes very difficult, except in the case where you would have, like violent crimes and shootings and stuff like that. So sometimes the support that farmers need from the TTPS, by virtue of the state of where the predial larceny unit is, the TTPS, it's very difficult to get assistance from them.
Yeah. As when you look at what's taking place, I mean, it has gone on to extortion, theft, home invasions. And it has made it quite difficult when you hear the plight of farmers, those who are still trying to deal with the fact that they don't have access to land to ply their trade, access routes, all of these things, fertilizers, a shift in the global economy that's affecting, climate change, all of these things compounded. What do you hear from some people? Are they packing it in and just saying, listen, I've had enough, I surrender, and, they just seem to be getting out?
Well, that's a very easy question to answer. And if we look at the newspapers, if we look at online ads where lands are being sold, you are sure to find numerous sales offers for those county limited 2-acre plots. Now, if you remember what those plots were supposed to do, they were supposed to act as a means of capacity building for the agricultural sector, because you have small farm holdings now who could now develop and contribute to food production. But when you look at the amount of county limited 2 acres and farms being sold out right now, owing to many factors, including the crime situation, including the attacks on farmers, the original intent and purposes of these lands are not being met right now.
Yeah. But when you look at some of the stats as far as the amount that we're importing, still with this high food import, in mid-2023 of last year, the regional level, the food import bill was $6 billion annually. And right here in this country, it was around US $1 billion, which is 7.3 billion TT dollars. When you hear about all of these things and so much things that happen globally in the whole changing of the entire industry, how far behind the black ball are we?
Well, let me quote some published statistics for you. Yes, you are correct. Our food import bill as of last year stood at 7.3 billion. Just a few years ago, just about 4 years ago, that figure was 5.2. So you're seeing in a few years a drastic progression. And this is because last year So we're going to compare it for over the last 8 years, which is a fair period, right? Our rice production, for instance, has dropped by 93%. The production of vegetables, and everybody buy tomatoes, bygone, all those kind of things, that dropped by over 30%. I will quote a very shocking figure for you. We import $180 million in milk every year. And let me tell you how much milk we produce. We produce local production by our farmers of Trinidad and Tobago. We produce, and you wouldn't believe this, Mikey, but this is a published statistic. We produce just about 1 liter of milk per person per year.
That's per year,
Think about that.
Yeah, per year.
Yeah.
Per
Think about that.
person annually.
Correct, yeah. And that is a published statistic that is available for anybody to do the research online and see.
Yeah, but
No.
how is it that, I didn't mean to cut you, but how is it that we've never evolved past all of these things? I mean, you would hear that the farmers, as much as they can do what they can out there, dealing with livestock and crops and whatever, that doesn't make them the best business person who may
Correct.
be able to market and to have a good balance sheet and to get things out there distributed. So one would think that there would be some sort of a process similar to that of a conveyor belt where each one has a responsibility to ensure that their sector is on par and running efficiently, so that in itself can help us produce more and better.
Well, there are two reasons, and I would look at it from both ends of the spectrum. One, from my experience, I will say that farmers have not been the beneficiaries of capacity building. That has not been a conversation that we've had locally for our farmers. Anyone is welcome to do research on that, and they could attempt to contra that what I'm saying. But we have not leveraged on capacity building of farmers. This is why I go out to farming communities and I reach out to the various regional corporations and the various bodies, and I offer agripreneurship training to farmers and farmers group totally free. Just because at some point in time, Mikey, someone has to take the stand and someone has to clamor for change. Aside from that, on the other end of the spectrum, the sector is where it is. The production levels are where it is. On the other side, owing to neglect, and neglect from the policymakers, right? I am saying this. I mean, I am a dairy farmer. I'm a dairy processor. I actually have a very good brand on the market. And I can tell you from that perspective, as a dairy farmer and a dairy processor, that there is no reason why Trinidad and Tobago should be importing $180 million of milk every year. We have the technical capacity, we have the land, we have the farmers, we have every single thing to do it, but we don't have the support to do it. Yeah, and when I say support, it's not necessarily the support to say government come and give you everything. That is not it.
I understand, but there's a lot of greed, like in most industries, people who are just simply driven by greed and believe that they can corner the market and monopolize on it. And when you look at what's taking place, there are those who have done that, especially when it comes to food processing, which is unfair. So again, here we go. This is something that one would think that everyone would be invited to partake in to help us, of course, reduce the import bill and to give us a better supply of local goods. But there are those who are simply saying, listen, I want to monopolize it all.
Correct. That is true. Now, if we look at the figure of the $180 million being imported, and let's break that down. Let's say I am wrong. I read incorrectly. The figure is $100 million. The last figures that we have is that we have 100 farmers, 100 dairy farmers in the country. You are telling me that we cannot increase that amount of farmers? We have 100, and by now considerably less, 100 dairy farmers. You know, so it comes down to all the contributing factors that have led to farmers just saying, listen, we are fed up. And this has happened over time. Because sometimes when you are faced with a situation such as crime, some farmers would opt to say, hey, I'm done with this. Because the farming population is generally an older population, because the sector has not been attractive to encourage young new entrants. And this is what we are trying to change in the ASTT. But also, as with anything else, there would be the need for support from central government for this drive.
Yeah, and that in itself is not what you're getting.
Well, correct. I saw the minister had an end-of-year message where he promised to work together with all stakeholders. And I would just like to say we are ready. We are more than able. We have the technical competencies. And we are waiting to work with the ministry and the minister to turn these statistics around to increase food production. And, you know, when you increase local production, the price goes down, you know, Mikey.
Yeah, of course.
There is no reason why tomatoes should be $20, $30, and $40 a pound. None. But it is there because of demand and supply.
And I agree with you 100%. We have to pause here at this time. I will continue this interview with you in the near future. Very interesting indeed. And of course, you're bringing some clarity to a lot of issues that have not been looked at as we continue just spending this money, and what are we getting in return? And the farmers itself. How is our industry going to develop if it is that there are those who are simply saying that they want to monopolize every sector of it? Mr. Rogers, I want to thank you so much again. Any closing comments quickly?
Quickly, I would just say, again, I would reiterate, we have the competencies locally. I will implore the minister and the ministry, work with us. Let's come up with a plan. Let's get it done. There is no reason why we cannot turn this sector around.
Thank you so much again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.